Hello everyone. So today we'll be going over the CAD features of CAD Vision, especially when you use the 2D CAD multiplier. So everything I will do today will be in CAD Vision 2024, but pretty much all the features that I will demonstrate today will apply to all the versions of CAD Vision. And also with this multiplier, so we'll go over things like layers, dimensions, symbols, and also tables and automatic text as well. So everything I'll do it directly in CAD Vision. So I will start right over and switch to my CAD Vision software. So when we want to set up CAD in CAD Vision, the very first thing we want to focus on first is the actual display properties of our software. So the display properties will touch about two different topics. The first one will be the layers, and the second one will be the dimensions. So the layers are what you see or not see on the screen, and also how you see it. And each screen you use in CAD Vision will have its own properties, independent to the other ones that you set in the overview. So with the layers, so what we want to do is we'll do it from the plan view. So in the plan view, we'll right-click on the screen outside a wall and select the properties window. So what we want to do from the plan view is to simply right-click on the screen outside a wall, and on the wheel select the properties tool. So in the properties window, we want to go straight to the layers tab. In the layers tab, we will have access to all the layers properties. So basically those layers properties are only specific to the plan view. We can set the same thing in the elevation, in the 3D view as well. And also we can do it at the cabinet level, we can do it at the part level. So with the layers, so we have three main tools that we can turn on and turn off. So first is to set if we want to see or hide a specific group of objects. So for example, the light bulb being on and off will show or hide the walls on the plan view.
So when I turn off the light and I click OK, you'll simply see that my walls now are hidden, but they're still here in the drawing. They're just simply not visible. So now if I turn them off again or on, that will basically toggle the visibility of the walls. You can do it for every type of object. The pen is to set if you want to print or not the object selected. So basically, if you want to send those objects to the drawing view, you can turn on or turn off the pen. This is specifically useful, for example, for peninsula wall. Sometimes you want to be able to see where is the peninsula wall you created for your island, but you don't necessarily want to print the line that represents the position of the peninsula wall. So that's what the pen does. The third option is the color of the object. So you simply click on the color selector, and then you can set a color for the specific layers. So in my particular setup, most of the objects are black, except the peninsula wall being gray, and the appliances and fixtures being pink, as we can see on the screen right now on the right side. So if I want now to say I want to change, for example, the color of my annotation, I can change it independently than the rest of my cabinet. So that's why they are blue on my example. So if I click OK now, I have my walls back on my screen. The second thing I like to set also in the layers properties, it's especially in the elevation view. So I'll switch to elevation. And in the elevation view, it's to display the architectural hinges. So basically, when I'm in elevation view, I want to see the opening of my doors directly from the elevation view. So to do that, I right-click again on my property button, go in the layers tab, and if I scroll down, this will be controlled by the layer called shop annotation. Right now it is invisible on my setup, so if I turn it on and also I turn on the pen to also send it to the drawing as well, I'll click OK, and I'll see that now there's much more detail to my drawing. This is all controlled by the shop annotation layers. And if we go back to the same layer, shop annotation, this is one of those where you have extra options available. So when you select it from the layers property window, you can click on the edit button, and you have additional properties that you can turn on or turn off are set just for the shop annotation layer. So for example, here I will have information about the opening width and the opening height. In my case, I don't necessarily want to see those dimensions. I don't want to add an extra outline for my doors. And maybe I don't need to see my rollout from my elevation view. And I want to keep a single line for my shelf. So I just kept architectural hinges, shelf with single line. Click OK. OK again. And now I will have my shop annotation displaying on my elevation view. And as I said, this is only for the elevation view. So this is specific to the elevation view. If I do a quick test of sending this to the drawings, let's say I right click outside my wall, select the option to drawing, I will already have a preview of my drawing being sent with now the indication of the door opening as well. So that's a feature that I like to turn on. And also it will show a line for my adjustable shelf. It could be a single line. It could be also 2 lines to also display the thickness of the part as well, if you want to. So if I go to my drawing, I can confirm that in my drawing, now my elevation will have and be printed with the architectural hinges being visible. So this is now set. And also to note that when you set those settings in a project, this is global. So the next project you will open, new, old project will all now follow this style of layers moving forward. So this is not necessary to update anything when you change the layers properties. Next thing with layers is the dimensions. And the dimension will start from the plan view. So as you can see, you can have a lot of different ways to display dimension in CAD Vision. And I see like pretty much everyone does it a different way. So that's why you have full control over it. And I just want to show you how to make modification to the dimensions in CAD Vision. So to do that, I will right click outside my walls, select properties to open the exact same layer property window. And this time you'll have to go down the list until you find the dimension layer. And the dimension layer, of course, as any other layer, could be turned on or turned off and change also the color of the dimension line. But you can also click on the edit button to now set how you want to display your dimension. And this is for the automatic dimension of the plan view. So we have 2 properties, so the styles and the lines. The styles will control the style of dimension that you're going to use. So basically the font, the height of the text, the type of arrows, this is all on the style. You can also control the increment or the offset from the wall. So the increment is the space between the dimension line. So this is the vertical or horizontal increment. And the line offset is the offset from the wall itself. So it could be changed. And if you want tail dimension, you can turn this on or off if you want to see the tail. The line is basically what will control what type of dimension you will see on each line. So basically a line represents a dimension that will be displayed on your wall. Right now I have 1, 2, 3 lines, 4 lines on my plan view, and I can see on my drawing that I have, if I just focus here, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines as well. Actually 4 lines on the top and 3 lines here because I don't have any appliance on this wall. Now, if I want to edit those lines, I can simply select any of them and click on the edit button, and I can turn on or turn off the object I want to add to my dimension line. And you have several options. So you can see, for example, the whole hand. You can see the assembly end, so the cabinet end. You can also go by the sink center or the appliance center, the window center, the door center, and more. So this is really up to what you want to include on this line. And in my case, for example, what I do, that's just a personal preference, is to not put, for example, a upper assembly line on my plan view, and instead just show it on the elevation view. So the plan view is not too busy showing a lot of dimensions. So I will just keep base, appliances, and wall length, for example. So I will, in this case, I will remove my upper assembly line. And before I remove it, just show you that this one just capture the wall hand and the upper assembly hand, as well as the door end too. So I'll just remove it. confirm. And if I already click OK and go back, now I'll simply have my base cabinet size, my appliance centers, and my wall length. And this is all by right-clicking again in the layer under properties, dimension edit, and now we have 3 lines available. Also, those lines, if we reopen any of them, you can see that you have a type of line. The type will decide if you want to get the line, the dimension to be along the wall, or at the end of a wall, or at the around a countertop as well. So you have 3 options for that. So you can change the type of line, and by selecting one, you will see basically the preview window will change, and now also change the type of object that you can add to your dimensions as well. So this is for the dimension, and just to also check the same setting in the elevation view. Now the elevation view will have 2 dimensions at the bottom of my wall, one at the top, one on the left, and one on the right. So this is again control just for the elevation view by going in the same screen under layers, edit, and you have now I have 2, 4, 6 line, which is the total I have. And what will decide the position of the line is, as I explained earlier, it's by simply clicking on edit, and the type will set if the line is on the left, on the right, on the top, or on the bottom. And then you check or uncheck what you want to add to your automatic dimension and click OK. Some dimension you might have to check force dimension line. It's more if you have several dimensions on the same of the same type on the same side, where they actually measure the same thing in a different way. So for example, if you measure something from the floor to the ceiling and then you add another one that will just get the wall height, if you don't check this, CAD Vision will tend to not repeat the overall dimension on the screen, but you can force it to always see it if you want as well. So this is for the dimension. And the last thing is, if you want, you can turn on or turn off to show the object depth. So right now mine is on, and what it will do, it will add a little note at the end of a wall where you have a cabinet and point to the depth of the object. And you will do the same thing also for the uppers as well too. So this is something you can turn off or turn on as well. If we want to control the way we display the dimension, the actual style of the dimension, it's under the style drop-down list. So first you have to select what style you want to use. And those are a list that will be already be available at any CAD Vision version, but you can also add your own styles by clicking on the edit button and then creating, copying, or deleting an existing style if you want to. And the style really is to save the actual font, text, arrow style of the dimensions. So right now I'm using for this elevation view the one called layout. So if I go under layout and I click edit, I can then redefine the style of my dimension by changing the height, changing the font, for example, controlling the type of left or right arrow I want, and also controlling the size of my arrow or mark as well, and also the line width as well. So this is basically all done in this window. And while you're changing the properties, you will see basically the preview window will update itself. So before you save, you can already confirm this is what you want or not. If we were to look at mine, so right now I'm using, my font is a Century Gothic. My arrow are set to oblique, and my arrow mark size is 1 and 3/16, and my text height is 3 and 17/32, for example. So this is what I use, and this will give you the style that you see on my screen. And then when you click OK and save, that will basically update all the dimension in your elevation view. So this is how we control the dimension first. So we saw also the layers as well. The next thing we want to cover is the CAD tool. So the CAD is basically the CAD function that you have available even on the left side screen of the screen, the button CAD, or sometimes it will appear also at the top. So just depending on what screen you are editing. So the CAD could be set at multiple level when you have 2D CAD. So first you can set the CAD for the room, so at the room level from the plan or elevation view. You can set the CAD at the drawing level, so basically just before generating your drawings, which means just before printing or saving them. So you can add CAD. When you add CAD from the drawing, that will not write the CAD on your room. That will only stay in the drawing tab here. So for example, if I select my elevation view, click CAD and add a text right here, type 1, 2, 3, click OK. This text is only being saved for this scene in my drawing, whereas if I go back to my actual job elevation view, doesn't have the text. But the other way around will work. So if I'm at the room level, which means I'm on the elevation view, I click to add a text, and I'll add it this time right here, and I'll say test 3, 2, 1, click OK. This text that I see at the room level now will be also visible at the drawing level, but only if you use the Inteli or live drawing, sorry. So the live drawing is when you right click and instead of creating a standard static drawing, you can create a live drawing. So the live drawing is almost recording your screen, and this will allow you to track the update that's done at the room level. So now if I bring back my scene, this is now with the text being included. This was a screenshot, which was just a static drawing that was generated. So it's kind of like a snapshot of something that I did before. So with 2D CAD, I tend to recommend, especially now with the newer version, to use the live drawing more and try to add basically CAD directly from the plan or elevation view or at the cabinet level as well, and just syncing everything using the live drawing to have all those changes applied to your actual drawings. So now if I remove those scenes, we'll go over a little bit about what 2D CAD will do with the CAD tool now. So at the room level, so we saw that we can add a text. So I just click text and I can add a text. The text could be simply by typing your text in the text field or clicking on the select button and using the auto text that CAD Vision provides. Auto text will be basically job, room, cabinet, or wall information that will be automatically populated by CAD Vision. And CAD Vision has its own code that will return a specific value. So for example, if I'm in the elevation view and I click on wall and I click on name, that will basically return the wall name automatically. So if I click OK and put this text, right now my wall is called wall. But if I were to change the name of my wall, it will change as well. And you can do the same thing if we do a new text, job, and I want to put my job name, click OK. Now my job name is an automatic text. And the automatic text means that if I go back to my job and I edit project 1, 2, 3, click OK, this will be also updated as an automatic text in my elevation view where I have the auto text generated by the 2D CAD. So if you want to reselect it, you can double click directly on the text so you can see the code. And by clicking on the select button, you have basically the freedom to explore what other option exists. So you can have customer address, name, phone number, and so on and so on. Another thing is you can also add your own text before or after an automatic text. So I can type if I want job space and then keep my job name code. And now this is now all formatted once I exit the text tool. And again, if I were to change, this will still be updated as well. And if my drawing, if I bring back my live drawing, again, this is also part of the live drawing tool where the auto text will also be updated as well. So this is now what you do at the room level. So this is added directly from the room. Another good feature is to do it at the cabinet level. So at the cabinet level, a good example is if you want to add a note inside a cabinet and you tend to move or reuse the cabinet, so you can save the CAD inside the cabinet. This oven unit is a good example because the word oven and microwave and warming drawer is actually not coming from the wall elevation. So if I click CAD and I try to select it, I can't. This is basically part of my cabinet. And if I double click on my cabinet now, I'll see that in my cabinet elevation, the CAD is now added from the CAD button directly on the elevation view. So if I add an extra text, for example, 2 doors, click OK, and I return, the text 2 doors will now be part of the elevation of the cabinet as well. So now it works fine, but if you do it from scratch, because here I did it in a cabinet where it already exists, there's a couple of things you want to know. So let me go back to bring a new cabinet with no CAD inside it. So I'll add the base cabinet. And this base cabinet will look at the elevation from the wall. So right now there's nothing, it's just a cabinet with a single door. So I'll double click on the cabinet to go in the cabinet editor. And in the phase view, I will select my CAD tool. And the CAD tools are exactly the same that you have at the room level as well. So we'll select the text and I will click where I want to add my text. And for my text, I want to select an automatic text. And this time I will use some automatic properties. So I'll go under properties, assembly, and I'll use the one called base door style. So I want to write the door style of my door for this cabinet. So I'll click OK. So now this is a slab door, and that's exactly what I have. So I didn't have to write slab. Kaizen will automatically follow the door style of this cabinet, and he will write it right in the middle of the cabinet we have here. So now if I return, you'll notice that if you just return back to your wall, nothing will happen by default. And the reason why is because you have to turn on the CAD in the plan or elevation view. So to do that, you right-click on the cabinet, you select Properties, and you have a checkbox to show the elevation in CAD. Or you can do also, if you added the elevation in the plan view of the cabinet and you want to see it at the room level, you can also turn it on from the plan view. So I turn it on. Now my cabinet will display the automatic text. And if I want, I can also still move the cabinet and the text now is part of the cabinet. So if I were to right-click, copy it, this is still attached to the cabinet as well. Now, if you wanted to save this in your catalog to reuse it, so let's say you want to already have a cabinet with the text that will always write slab, for example, what you have to do when you save the cabinet, you right-click on it, you select, for example, the option to save as, and it's very important to check to preserve the CAD. So you have a checkbox, preserve CAD. So if you don't check it, when you save the cabinet, the CAD will be not saved with the cabinet and it will disappear. So here I'll check save CAD and I'll call this sample CAD and click OK. So now if I go to my objects, custom base door, this is my cabinet called sample CAD. And if I bring it back, now it's saved with my text as well. And here I just put one line of text, but of course you can put more to it. You can put several lines of text if you want to. Every CAD will be displayed in this cabinet when you turn on the show elevation CAD. So we can do it also at the plan view. So plan, and I can add also CAD text and add any text. And if I go in my plan view, again, it won't show automatically. So I just have to select my cabinet and show plan CAD and click OK. And now it's displayed on my cabinet. Now, of course, it will be basically displayed exactly the same way it was displayed on the cabinet. Yeah. So this is how you add CAD at different level, at the room level, at the cabinet level, or at the drawing level as well. So I tend to target based on what I want to do. So for example, if it's for hardware on a specific cabinet or a appliances, I will do it directly in the assembly and save it with the assembly. So at least I know if I move it or I delete it, it will be gone at the same time. But if it's just some general job properties, I will put it directly on the wall or the plan as well. So now with that being said, let's go over CAD features that we have. So text leader is really easy. So it's typically to add a leader and also attach a text to it. So you click where the leader is, and you can click as many times as you want to add a node, and you right click to exit and type your text. So I'll just type text leader. Every time you add a text or some CAD, when it's created, it will tend to stay in the last tool that you use. So you click on the select command in the toolbar, and now you can reselect the object and change the properties if you want. So for example, if in this case it's way too small, you can change to 4 for the height. You can change the arrow size, and that will update the properties of the object. With that being said, what I recommend is when you have a little bit of experience with using CAD and creating text over a few jobs, sometimes you notice that you always have to change the size of the text, the size of the arrow, and so on. So what you can simply do, and that's a little tips, is to select the command you want to customize. So for example, text. And before you click or place any text, you can change already some properties. So you can already change the height to be, for example, 6. I'll make it much bigger. And then you can click to create the text, and I'll just use the same text I had before. And what will happen is the next time, if I exit, go back and come back to place a text, it will default this to 6. So it will remember that the tool was set to 6, and now that's my new default moving forward. So you don't have to change those settings all the time you add a text. So that just once you find out which size, font, and so on works best for you, just set those as default, and then you don't have to reset them all the time. Dimension is to add a custom dimension to object. So when you add the dimension, of course, it's always better to turn on the snap to point. So right here at the bottom, you simply click to enable snap to point. And before you place a dimension or after, depending on what you want to do, you can set the type of dimension. So you can do linear, align, internal, radius, diameter. So this is all in the list here. So linear is basically, I will have this dimension to basically follow and be even perpendicular to the object as well. And then you get the dimension added. And if you reselect it again, you can change all the properties of the dimension as well. When it's a dimension, another useful tool to know is, other than just typing the dimension by clicking where it start and end, you can double click on it, and you will have a window that will open to set the dimension start or the dimension end. Or you can type, for example, if you put 30 and you want to move the start point, that will make it 30 inch and only move the start point on the dimension. So it will basically make it a little bit deeper. You can also do one where you set your own text. Put 30 inches maybe. And that will become now a dimension with a text as well. And you can, of course, put anything you want. So you can just put PBD, and then that's just become a text as a note on your drawing as well. So that's also a useful thing you can do for island. So if, for example, the island, it's not clear what is the distance and you already set it. So if you don't want to resubmit your drawing and move the island on back and forth, you can just play with the dimension and change the text. And of course, nobody should measure it and think that the dimension is accurate on the drawing. So this is what you can do with dimensions. Text box is a text that could be typed on multiple lines. So you just draw basically the area you want to use to generate your text box, and then you can type your text the same way you will format some text in Microsoft Word. So what you can do also, you can combine automatic text and just normal text in a text box. So for example, I already had a little set of text that I wanted to And I'll just try to bring it on my screen. So for example, I will copy paste a text, paste it here. And basically this text that I have as static text and automatic text. So if I just edit it one more time, and I'll just make it bigger so we see it, and even bigger, and I double click on it. So you'll see that this is just text that I type, and then I added the card for the automatic text for different job properties. So those are automatic text that could be found by clicking on text, select job, and then I went into, I believe, those properties, and then assemblies, and you'll have a lot of codes for cabinet construction, drawbox construction, and so on and so on. And also, of course, the help file is a good place to find all those texts already formatted for you. So basically, when I do that now, the great thing is, if I just move it a little bit, is this is always going to be updated automatically based on my job properties. So right now, for example, my cabinet construction is a dowel construction. I'm using undermount drawer guides. But if I go back to my job and my cabinet are using just a material called mel for melamine. So if I go back in my job properties, I change this to be blindado. I change this to be maple, maple, and maple. And maybe what do I have? Also have example handle will be 128. So if I click OK, as soon as the job is updated, so first it's updated, of course, in the job properties for the part, materials, and assemblies, but also that will be updated on my actual text box as well. So now my text box could stay here and always have the most current job properties displayed and printed as well. So if I were to right click and select to create a live drawing, this live drawing will also come, and let's add a new page and drag and drop. A little bit too big, but if we go scale, let's go quarter. Now this plan view also has the automatic text coming from the text box as well. And if you want to modify it, you can go back to CAD, select the text box, and you can then say you don't want to see the frame as well, and then you can see the change being applied also on the drawing because it's a live drawing as well. So this is the text box tool as well. Another very good tool is in the insert group. So it's the symbol. So the symbol is mostly to reuse CAD in any project. And this is really another place where you can, when it's properly done, save a lot of time creating drawings. For example, this text box I created, let's say I wanted to reuse it for other project and not have to redraw it and put the text back and all that. So that's why I can save this object as a symbol. So right now I'm still in CAD. I select my text box. If I right click on it, I have an option to save symbol. So basically that will save this as a symbol. And this is right here on the wheel, save symbol. Now I can set in which group I want to save it or create my own group. So I'll save it in a group I already created called CAD training. And I'll call it job properties. Click OK. And now if you want to reuse a symbol, so you go back in the insert tool, symbol, and on the left side, you can see the different group of symbols, and then simply select the symbol and drag and drop it. So this will allow me to reuse this auto text in any job in just one click by finding the symbol and dragging it in my room. And of course, all the information that is using auto text will be replaced with the properties of your current job that you're working on. So you just set basically the format of it and it will always be current to the job you are working on. Being CAD musician, always remember that thing works in different levels. So if you set this at the room level, it will show the room level. It doesn't mean that it will show you what you have in the cabinet that's different. That's just the properties of the job right now, because I'm using the job code. If you wanted it to be room by room, when you put your auto text, you will see that in the auto text, you have different levels. So you have the properties of the job. You also could have also the properties of the room, depending on what level you are working on. So you have to be careful. This is the room properties. This is job properties. So it will just show the job properties, and this will display the room properties. The same thing, but for the room. So if you have multiple rooms, make sure you actually select the information in the right group as well. So that was to create a symbol. And when you have symbol, that's also where you can create more like symbol that will display different information on your drawing. So for example, if I go back in my symbol, I have a couple of custom symbol. For example, a north arrow. Let's say I want to add an arrow in front of my wall. This one is a symbol where I also created a prompt to ask me what to add in my symbol. So right now I have two information I need to fill out, an elevation number and a sheet number. So elevation number, I'll put 2, and obviously, for example, sheet number 3. And I click OK. Now, Kaizen will put the information where you decided to be on your symbol. So to create this, it's a little bit more advanced, but it's by using a special code where you add a question mark in the auto text field. So basically, I will return, and this time I will go in the Drawings tab. In the Drawing tab, you have a tool called Drawing Library, and this one is to manage all the CAD tool and drawings tool in your library, including the symbols. So if you wanted to go back to your symbols library, rename, delete, change them, this is by going in Drawing Library. So I have my north arrow that I created. I can click Edit. And this is basically a circle, a black arrow, and then some text, all combined together to build it as a symbol. And the circle is a circle. The arrow would be basically, you can draw an arrow and just make it basically no tail. And then you add text to it in the middle. Now to create the prompt, basically instead of using an auto text code, in the curly brackets, you put a question mark, the name of the prompt, and you close the curly bracket, and then that will populate a field with a question. So for example, if I do another one from scratch, I put a new text, and I'll call it, for example, designer. So this is the text I want first, space. And now I'll open my curly bracket, put a question mark, and type designer name, and close my curly bracket. So this code here, the curly bracket with the question mark and the prompt name, will add a line to the prompt where you can, when you call the symbol, it will also ask you what is the designer name, for example. So now I click OK. I will save it with my symbol. And if I go back to my plan view, and let's say I go back to CAD, just delete the old one here, go back to insert a symbol, my north arrow, drag and drop it, so it's a little bit bigger. Click. Now you see I have to fill out the elevation number, the sheet number, and the designer name. Now put 1, 2, Chris, click OK, and now that will be all filled out while I'm dragging the symbol. So at least it's semi-automated where you can have some of information added, and also you can tell the user what information you expect with this symbol as well. And that's a very good way to not to have to manually go edit, select text, modify the text. You just use this code to fill out the text automatically by the user. So this is with the symbols. And with the symbol, you saw that you can save basically or text box. You can save just general CAD, and you can really save anything that's coming from the CAD as a symbol. So if I draw here a rectangle and I put a line here and I click select, I can select all this as a group. I can right click, even save as symbol, or I can even group before and save as symbol if I want to be one block, but I can do it directly as a symbol. And then I can put it in CAD training and I call it box. Click OK. And now if I go back, oops, CAD, I was already there, insert, I have my box, and now I can reuse my box anytime I want in any job as well too. So this is with the symbol. Another good tool is the table. So the table is to create automatic information formatted in an actual table. So what I'll do first, let me select everything and delete just to clean out my drawing a little bit. So the table will almost look like a text box, but in an even more automated way. So I will have to draw first where I want to build the table. And the table will only get information from what you see on your screen. So if I draw the table and now I have to pick what group I want. So the group will be basically different group of information you can display. So I want to, for example, display all the assemblies on my plan view. So there will be a lot. So I expect to have a very long table. I can rename also the header of this group. I can then pick the columns I want to display. So I want, for example, to have cabinet numbers, cabinet name, and width, height. If I click OK now, Kaizen will automatically populate a table that will always be updated the same as you do automatic text and the same as you do live drawing. They'll always display all the assemblies you have coming from this plan view for this particular room. So if I remove, add a cabinet or change the size, that will automatically update the table I see here. So depending on your job, I don't necessarily recommend to put a table, for example, for plan view with all the cabinets. But because you can do symbols, you can create different style of tables. So you can create one as a symbol and say this is a table for all the cabinets. This is a table for only for the base. This is a table only for the accessories, and just get them back in the room using the insert symbol tool, and it will bring back the table already formatted the way you want. And when you select a table, you can individually go rename each column, change the width, the height, as well the font. So everything is customizable on the left side and directly on the screen, where you can change also the table itself. So it could be a good way, for example, if you are in elevation view and you want to create already a symbol that will be a table with all the cabinet from your elevation view. So you can go in CAD, or just go select all, delete everything, insert a table, build it right here, plus I'll say all assemblies, and just call it assemblies, number, name, width, height. Click OK. Now this is much more practical. I can then set where I want my table, and I can also look at it, and maybe this is way too wide. So let's get this much smaller. Can even change the text here. Can change this to a number. Okay. And format this, which doesn't expect it to be that big. And this same thing, I can make this a lot smaller as well if I want to. Once you have this set, and we can probably stretch this a little bit, you can then right click, save as a symbol, and call it assemblies. Oops. I put elevation dash assembly list. Okay. And now anytime I want in a job, I can simply go in CAD, insert symbol, and call my symbol, click, and now I have my list in one single click wherever I want here. It needs a little bit of formatting, but you get the idea of how to quickly reuse this symbol coming from a table as well. So this is really a very powerful tool. And once you combine symbols with a lot of other things, you can save yourself a lot of time. The DXF features does exist in any version of CAD, but also in 2D CAD, of course. It's to insert a CAD coming from a third-party software in your actual project. An example is if you were to create a new room. So I create a new room in my project, and I already have a CAD drawing that an architect did. So I can go in CAD, go insert DXF, select the file. So I'll use this one. Click open, click import. Always check your scale because sometimes they are scaled differently. You can also turn on or turn off the layers. Click OK and click, and now this is all the CAD coming from my software or my architect. So what you do, of course, this is not going to draw the kitchen or the bath or the closet by itself, but at least it's a good starting point where you can use the snap to point being on, use the wall tool, and now easily sketch your walls exactly where you need it. If you need to draw a curved wall, you can even do that by selecting this wall, using the bend, snap, and it will follow basically the exact angle. Actually, I'm a little bit off. I should do it from the front, but it will follow basically the shape of your object on the screen as well. So this is a very good tool where you can import CAD, and also if you already have text, dimension, you can even reuse those, so you don't have to redo all the details and notes and CAD from a project as well. So this is by selecting CAD, insert DXF here. So this is a good starting point once you do a project to at least have this right here on your screen and use it to quickly sketch your project in Cablevision. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover with you today. I will get back to you, Amanda, to go in the chat and to answer any question that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christopher. And thank you for doing a quick microphone change early on in your presentation. And thanks everyone who helped us out with troubleshooting that. So I will start going through the questions. We have lots of great questions. And just to say, if we do hit time and you have to leave, don't worry, everyone. We will be recording the whole session, including all of the Q&A. And we will share it with you as soon as it's available. It'll be on YouTube. I'll send you all the link. And if there were any questions that we weren't able to answer during this time, please feel free to send me an email and we'll make sure to answer you. All right, so I'll dive into the first question, Christopher. So this one was in the context of dimensions. The question is, can you display shelf width only once instead of for each shelf under shop annotations?
Good question. No, we cannot do it on the shop annotation. It will display it for every single shelf that we have. So this one will require manually to add the CAD, the text or the dimension on only the shelf we want. But that's a good feature, and maybe we could suggest the idea to the developers.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question, can dimension styles be set up as annotative so numbers show up at a consistent height in paper space no matter what scale is being used?
Another good one. Currently, no. It will really just change the scale as a whole, but not cover a specific defined space. So I would say that's an idea that we could submit, but right now it will just basically be scaled and just basically cover just the length of the text itself and not actually change the spacing of the text.
Perfect, thank you. All right, we have a best practice question now. So the question is it standard practice or encouraged to use the send to live drawing versus send to drawing?
Okay, so I would say it will depend on the size of the project first. If you work in a context where you do a project of 50, 60 different rooms, I would not really recommend to do live drawing for every single rooms because that will get quite heavy and you will feel that it's slowing down. It was even a bigger problem in the past. Now with Cablevision being a 64-bit software since a couple of years, this was greatly improved. So you can do more live drawing that you used in the past, but you still have to feel like if you are going to generate 50, 100 of different pages of drawing, maybe focus to the one that has to be live, and the one that could be static, just keep them as static. But I would say a standard house, if you do more residential, for example, I would say, let's say you have a kitchen, 2 baths, a closet, I would say it will perfectly handle live drawing for pretty much everything, no problem. If you do a commercial and you do like an entire building, several floors, that's where you can see a performance hit, and maybe you have to scale back on the live drawing. But most of the time, it will work fine.
Perfect, thank you. This next question, I believe, was posed in the context of leaders. And so the question is, what about keeping the CAD in the middle of an assembly as it resizes? Does a UCS have to write it?
Good question. Very good question. Right now, at the moment, if you just use the tools you have in CAD, it will not keep it in the middle of the cabinet, especially if you resize it. So that's where, indeed, you would have to rely on a UCS to move or correct the position of the CAD, which you can even check on Nexus, the website. There's a lot of great example and conversation about that, or directly reach out to our team where we can help you to implement this solution.
Perfect, thank you. The next question was posed while you were discussing text boxes. Can you set the dimension to default to tailed?
Yes, absolutely. So when you set the dimension, the same way you do it with the text size. So if I go back to my CAD, if I go dimension, I can select tailed without, so it's important to not place any dimension just yet. You just hit dimension and go directly to change the dimension type, and you'll select, for example, linear tailed. Then you can add any dimension that you want. And what will happen is, even if you exit your CAD tool and go back and go to dimension again, it will still save it as a tail by default now. So tail becomes your new default for your dimension.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, and we have, is there a way to remove the lines around the text box?
Yes, it's in the properties of the text box. So if I go to create a new text box and let's type some text, by default you have the line, but if you reselect it, so you click on the select command, click on the actual outside edge of the text box. Now you look on the left on the properties and you have the frame properties. You just simply set it to no. And now you just keep the text with no frame around it. And again, same as what we did with the tail dimension, when you put the text box, you can already turn off the frame if you want to never see a frame around it. You can set it as default as well.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a way to link to the room properties in the same way you are connecting to job properties?
Mostly yes, and it will just depend the context in where you want to populate the text. But the same properties we had at the job level, for example, the code we had for the job, and I can show you again those codes. Let's go back here. Those codes we have here, like the job ASCM CONST assembly construction, you could, if you wanted to, just simply type room instead, and that will return the same value, but from the room level. So if I were to just be here and use this code and put a text, and now paste this here, click OK, that will return the construction of the room instead of the construction of the job. So if you have two rooms but different construction, you will have this to be now showing the construction, the actual room you are seeing on the scene. So when I go to print this, if I have, for example, let's say I will go back to my other room and I'll put also the same text. Go text, reuse the same code. Okay. And now this one, I will go at the room level, change, say this room will use dowel, Click OK. So because the code is tied to the room, even if my overall job is set to use blind dado, but my room here is calling for dowel. So now this is going to reflect the properties of the room. And if I send this to a live drawing, I can put them side by side. And actually, it's so big, we won't see everything. But this is now dowel versus blind dado here. So just to make sure that you replace the first code with room instead of job. Okay.
Beauty, thank you. Okay, this guest is asking, could you review how insert table works?
Insert table. So insert table, I guess this is the insert and the table. Okay, so this one, quickly to go over it, is simply once you are in the insert and you select table, you first have to draw it. Then in the pop-up window, you select the type of object or the group of object you want to add to your table. And you can add multiple group on the same table. So you can say, I want first to add, for example, all my accessories, and you want the name of the accessory. Then I want, for example, to add my base assemblies. And then you select what you want it to represent and click OK. And then the table will be built based on what you set. And then this table, if you reselect it, you can format it. So you can change the title of the columns. You can change the width of the column as well. You can also right click and save it as a symbol if you want to reuse it. And what will happen is as you add cabinets, so for example, if I add a cabinet, my table will automatically be updated on my screen as well and be filled out here. Okay. And if this is still not enough, just go back to the recording and you will also go over more information on how to properly use the table.
Perfect. Thank you. Stop me if you already answered this question or covered this in your presentation. So this question is there a way to populate properties of a cabinet in the same way as job or room properties?
Yes, as long as you are at the cabinet level. So if you are at the cabinet level, let's say you wanted to add a cross section of your cabinet with a little like text box or table. Now I'm at the cabinet level. So if I now select CAD and I go insert, for example, let's say a table, we'll see first for the table, you will have basically group that will generate all the parts, hardware information of a cabinet. So this is at the cabinet level. And if you do it as a text, you see that also in the text selection list, instead of going under the room or job list, you go directly under construction or properties. And you'll see that now the text will start with the word CAB, C-A-B. So you add at the beginning job, you add room, and now CAB will call it at the cabinet level. But what is important is that will work well only if you create this drawing for only one cabinet at a time, because it's really tied to a specific cabinet. Okay.
Beauty, thank you. My next question here is, I want to show the assembly properties on the elevation as a way to do a check before running to S2M Center. Is there a way to shut off the show elevation CAD in the layer schedule?
Yes, I think what you want to first, you can simply not check the show elevation CAD for specific cabinet if it's only for specific cabinets. You can also, the thing is, if you turn it off at the elevation in the properties of the view, it will shut down all the CAD. So you have to be a little bit careful on if you want it to be for the entire view to shut off all the CAD or not. Another solution, it's a little bit more advanced, is when you go into adding any object in CAD, and it could be a text, a dimension, or anything, and if I put a text, you can put a text into a CAD layer. So a CAD layer is a sub layer where it's attached to a specific object. So right now, by default in Caption, everyone only has a default layer. But let's say you wanted a layer for engineering, a layer for plumbing, and a layer for electricity. And sometimes you want to have detail for electricity, detail for plumbing. So what you do while in CAD, you can create more layers. So you click New. And this new layer, now you can say this text is attached to the layer called layer 2. And you can put another text, for example, to-door, oops, right here. And then this text, and if I select it, to-door, is attached to the layer default. So one is tied to default, one is tied to layer 2. And then what you can do is you can say, right now, I only want to see all my detail for my default, but not my layer 2. So you can actually turn this off. And actually, you have to, I think you have to add a third one. Let's go. Just to make sure this will be layer 3. And this should be still layer 2. Here you go. So layer 3 and now layer 2. So now you can go to display even the 2 or the 3 or both at the same time. So you kind of have, just to go to your switch, I want to see all my checklist. Then when you want to just print for the customer, you just turn off the one called checklist, and then you will never display anywhere on any cabinet. But it just has to make sure that this is properly set up first.
Perfect, thank you. All right, our next question is, can we edit the format of the drawing name instead of, for example, room name W1XFEC?
Good question, and not to my knowledge. So I will assume that this is automatically generated by CAD Vision, and unfortunately, you will have to keep it this way unless you manually yourself rename them. What you could do is maybe in a UCS and a parameter, you can just create a new one that you format the way you want it and use a text to call the parameter from your UCS, for example.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Can you create multi-line text leaders?
Good question, and the answer is unfortunately no, but there is an enhancement request to allow it. Right now, the best you could do is to first create a text leader with the first text that you want to input, and then add a second text below it. I know it's not super user-friendly, but it would be then how you could, or even create just a leader, and then put a text box next to it to after that have multiple lines. So you will require, no matter what you do, you will require 2 steps to do that. But we're hoping to have maybe a multi-text leader in the list.
Beauty, thank you. Okay, so we have a follow-up question about tables.
Mm-hmm.
So TJ says, I'm missing a lot of the group options for tables. No assembly option, accessory option, etc. How do I access the full list of filters?
I would say it might depend even on the license or the place where you want to generate the table. Same as when you are at the room, the cabinet, or the part level. If you are directly in drawing, for example, and you go insert CAD, you might see less options for the table than the rest. Here, you see when I'm in drawing, I only have some attribute for the entire job, but I cannot access some for the room because this drawing page could be for any room in my job. So you just have to make sure that when you want to add your table, do it in the view where you want the information to be coming from.
Got it. Thank you. We have 2 last questions, Christopher. Thank you for your extra time. Okay, let me just read this full question. It shows that we can rotate the text box. It shows that it is rotated, but when I print the page physically and to PDF, the text box jumps way off on the plan. Do you know how to fix that?
I don't know, and this one might require some troubleshooting from us, just so we can test and confirm if it could be a software issue. But to my knowledge, the rotate should rotate, but if it does not print or output as expected, it might be a little bug that we can report and get fixed.
Okay, perfect. I'm just making a note that we'll follow up on that. Thank you. Our last one, or maybe second to last one, is there a way to label hardware, pulls, etc., items that are repeated a lot but need to be called out?
Yes, it will require a little setup where you would basically create what we call system parameters. So system parameter is a property that you can show on the left side of your screen. So for example, you can put one called hardware, DrawCAD hardware, PLAM1, PLAM2, PLAM3. So those will be basically fields that you manually type. And then in your text box or in your table, you can say, put basically the value of those different parameters on my drawing. And then you can easily type all this in one place and have it updated directly on your drawing. So this is something we can help you with to set up on a one-on-one call with a technician, for example, or Nexus might have some example too.
Beauty. That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Todd, who listed a UCS that we should all check out that allows you to select CAD views on the attribute bar. So I think that's all of our questions for now. Christopher, Thank you so much for the extra time.
Thank you, everyone.